We've all heard the story. A giant asteroid hit Earth 66 million years ago and wiped out the dinosaurs. But what exactly was it that killed all the non-avian dinosaurs? By now we've come to terms with the fact that it wasn't the impact itself, but rather the aftermath of the impact that caused the majority of these extinctions. But what exactly transpired after this impact, and how long did it last? I just recently got to go on a Geological Society of America field trip led by researchers that are currently rewriting our understanding of this extinction event. And let me tell you, it was crazy to hear about all the new research findings. I mean, I had to change the way that I teach this event to my class, my undergraduates. So in this video, we're going to explore what really killed the dinosaurs. First, for some brief background information, this story begins with a thin clay-rich layer found all over the world that is loaded with iridium, an element that's rare on Earth but common in meteorites. This discovery in 1980 by the Alvarez team sparked one of the biggest scientific debates of the century. What caused the formation of this iridium-rich layer? The iridium itself suggested some kind of extraterrestrial source, and later on, more evidence for an asteroid impact was found in rocks of similar age. And I'll mention specific examples later on, but it wasn't until the 90s that the crater was finally discovered, which became the smoking gun for this impact hypothesis. But even with clear evidence of a huge asteroid impact 66 million years ago, it wasn't enough to definitively say that this was the primary cause of the KPG mass extinction event that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs. And it still isn't. There's still a lot of debate about what actually caused the extinctions during this period. But recent research seems to be making incredible headway in terms of figuring out exactly what happened after this impact. And I'm not talking about years, months, or even days after impact. I'm talking about seconds, just seconds after this impact. That's right, recent models have reconstructed what happened in the crater itself seconds after the impact. How? Well, in 2016, an international team launched IODP Expedition 364 to drill straight into the crater's mysterious inner ring of hills called the Peak Ring. And what they found has rewritten textbooks. The Peak Ring isn't made of shallow marine limestones, it's uplifted granite from 8 to 10 kilometers down, thrust upward in just seconds. The cores of rock recovered from this expedition show shocked metamorphosed minerals, melt breccia, microspherules, other impact textures, and of course, an iridium-rich layer that ties the crater directly to the global KPG boundary. And above the impact rock lies a calm succession of Paleocene marine muds that record how and when life returned after the event. These cores, now stored at the Gulf Coast Repository in A&M, which we got to visit on our field trip, tell the story of the before, the during, and the after of the KPG impact, layer by layer. Here's the timeline that we've unraveled so far. First, a 12-kilometer wide asteroid struck a shallow tropical sea 66 million years ago. The blast immediately melted and fractured the crust, creating a peak ring of uplifted basement rocks surrounded by pools of impact melt hundreds of meters thick. And keep in mind that while the asteroid was just about 12 kilometers wide, the peak ring is about 80 kilometers wide, and the entire crater is over 200 kilometers wide. So the impact didn't just melt and fracture rock directly below it. It sent shockwaves through the crust, causing destruction at a much larger scale. One of our field trip leaders put it this way: the entire seafloor essentially jumped about 2 meters in the air and then moved. And this caused a massive earthquake equivalent to around a magnitude 11. And within minutes after impact, material that was blasted up into space began falling back through the atmosphere, producing enough heat at our surface to ignite vegetation and raise air temperatures to hundreds of degrees Celsius, which led to widespread wildfires, which we could track in the rock record using PAH, or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon data, and charcoal in sediments at this boundary. Sediments around the world, from New Zealand to North America, contain soot and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that indicate that for a few terrifying hours, much of the planet was burning. At the same time, so still within a few minutes after impact, mega tsunamis raced outward thousands of kilometers from the crater. There's a wonderful outcrop along the Brazos River in Texas that shows cross-bedded sands deposited as tsunami waves surged inland and then back toward the Gulf. This was actually one of our stops on the field trip, but unfortunately the river was too high when we visited to see it. So instead, we got this iconic moment in our trip, which I really just have to include.
Brazos River, and as you can't see, a spectacular set of KPG boundary outcrops that are basically extending downriver a couple hundred meters going this way. And I just want you to imagine how awesome it looks. It's the best outcrop you've seen in your life. It's just changing your whole perspective on the world and on our science right there.
So anyway, around the same time that these tsunamis were surging, impact debris thrown up into the atmosphere, including dust, aerosols, and soot from wildfires, began spreading around the planet. And so after this initial surface heating due to the re-entry of impact ejecta came darkness and cooling. The impact threw up a lot of material into the atmosphere, some of which was too small to fall back to the surface right away. Much of these smaller dust particles actually made it all the way into the stratosphere, leading to their global spread, which ended up blocking sunlight and preventing photosynthesis for years, causing global ecological collapse. This was called impact winter, and recent research suggests that it could have lasted for up to 2 decades. And research estimates that photosynthesis might have almost completely stopped for the first around 2 years of this period. And this impact winter was likely the primary cause of extinctions across the KPG boundary. Animals that ate plants, or animals that ate those animals that ate the plants, suffered great losses. Ironically though, the plants themselves, specifically seed plants, didn't actually experience major extinctions at this time, because they had seeds that could remain dormant for many years and then grow again when the sun came back. Likewise, animals that ate seeds or insects or anything that didn't require constant photosynthetic activity had much greater survival rates than other animals. This is one reason birds with beaks survived over birds with teeth, and I talk way more about this in a previous video I made over on my channel, GeoGirl, so I won't get into it here. But impact winter wasn't just a period of limited photosynthesis and cooling. It also came with years of widespread acid rain due to the increased amount of sulfur gases in the atmosphere released from the rock that the asteroid impacted and vaporized. Although the relative contribution of acid rain as a direct cause for these extinctions is still not well constrained, it certainly wouldn't have helped. And overall, impact winter is estimated to have decreased global average temperatures by about 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, which in only 20 years, guys, is insanely rapid. And normally on my channel, I talk about global temperature changes being rapid on geologic time if it's several degrees Celsius within a million or a couple million years, but 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in just 20 years, I mean, the timeline of this event is just unheard of. And not just the event itself, I mean the reconstructions of it too. Typically when it comes to deep time Earth history research, we're looking for error bars on dating rocks of like plus or minus a million years sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's pretty coarse, but this event, I mean, I was listening to these field trip leaders talk about days, hours, minutes, seconds after impact, which is, I mean, it's just incredible research being done. And a lot of it isn't rock record based. A lot of it obviously has to be model based, but it's just really cool to see that this is happening. I mean, Jesus. So anyway, back to the timeline. After the impact winter came a potential greenhouse warming period. Fun fact, I actually used to teach my students that this greenhouse warming period, after all of the other impact things and impact winter, was one of the primary causes of the extinctions across this boundary. But I learned on this trip that it was actually much more the impact winter that was the cause of most of the extinctions, and that this greenhouse warming period has still a lot of remaining uncertainties surrounding it. To my understanding, this greenhouse warming period following impact winter is hypothesized because the asteroid hit and vaporized thick deposits of carbon-rich rock that released immense amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Essentially, the dust that caused impact winter eventually settled, whereas the carbon dioxide remained in the atmosphere for much longer, leading to a warming period on the order of thousands of years. However, the asteroid also hit sulfur-rich rocks, which would have released a bunch of sulfur dioxide and other sulfur compounds into the atmosphere that form sulfate aerosols, which block sunlight and cause cooling instead of warming. So estimating the relative timing and intensity of warming versus cooling after this impact is still ongoing. But even if warming did happen, and even if it was intense and rapid after the impact winter, it likely came after the majority of the extinction event was already over. The around 75% of species that went extinct during this event were mostly victims of the starvation, acid rain, and freezing temperatures associated with impact winter. And finally, on to our last step in the KPG impact timeline, recovery. The story of how and when life began to recover after this impact is actually so interesting that I'm gonna make it a whole separate video, and so I'll link that below if it's out by now. So even though we've reconstructed this incredibly detailed timeline of the aftermath of the KPG impact, there's still a lot that we don't know. So in the next video in this series, I'll be talking about all of the unsolved mysteries and the research going into solving said mysteries. Specifically research that the field trip leaders that I got to spend the entire day with and learn from are doing. They're on the forefront of this. The research that I'm citing, which is linked down in the description box below, is like 2026, going to be published, in 2026, like brand new. I'm telling you, it's insane. I don't know why my voice is getting so high. It's just so exciting. And if you would like to join one of these GSA field trips for yourself, I'll link some helpful web pages down below. These trips are open to anybody, and GSA puts on these field trips all across the US throughout the year. So be sure to check their website for more information about their upcoming trips, whether you want to learn about the KPG boundary in Texas or the Rocky Mountains or the Grand Canyon. I mean, they have it all. So that'll all be linked down below, and thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Oh, and fun fact, I also learned on the field trip that the Chicxulub crater is actually pronounced the Chicxulub crater, which, makes sense in hindsight. But also, if you Google, word for word, Chicxulub crater in google.com, I'm not even going to tell you what happens. Just Google it, you'll get a surprise, and comment down below if you see the surprise. All right, bye.